What's up guys, it's Ryan and you're watching Ryan Vision. Today we got an install video for you. We're going to be installing Iron Rock off-roads over the Knuckle steering kit, and we opted for the 5/8 inch upgrade, which is just bigger hardware. Basically what you're looking at is my buddy Vlad's 2005 LJ Rubicon Sahara edition. So they call it a Rubihara, pretty rare. There's not many of these around. So basically the way I met Vlad was he bought my old lift kit. So the lift kit that was on my Jeep before I got the Iron Rock off-road lift kit is now on this rig. So he's at 4.5 inch lift, and the stock steering is just not cutting it for him anymore. He wants to beef it up a bit, and he wants to get ready for things like the Rubicon Trail, Fort Ice Trail, and things like that. So here's what he's sitting on right now. It's the original steering, which is basically just a Y-link setup. So you can see it's not a solid tie rod. So for you guys that are new to this stuff, the tie rod goes all the way from knuckle to knuckle. But in this case, you can see that the tie rod actually ends right here and then kind of goes off this way. So that's why they're calling a Y-link setup. And you can also see that this steering from the factory bolts to the bottom side of the knuckle. This is the knuckle, and it bolts down low, which is fine for a stock Jeep, but when you're going off-roading on things like the Rubicon Trail, you want to get as much clearance as possible. You don't want to bend your steering. So what Iron Rock Off-Road did on their setup is they run a solid tie rod, literally solid steel, but it's going to go from this knuckle all the way over to the other knuckle, and it's going to sit on top for more clearance. So it's going to run all the way across over to the top of this knuckle. In addition to that, we're going to be drilling the knuckles out with a 5/8 inch drill bit to run the 5/8 inch grade 8 hardware that comes with the Iron Rock kit. So just thicker bolts, stronger bolts to prevent any chances of breaking on the trail. Okay, so again, that's going to be over the knuckle with a thicker grade 8 bolt, all provided in the kit, and it's going to go all the way across one solid tie rod. I'll show you in just a second. And then it's also, the steering kit is going to replace the drag link, which is what goes up to the pitman arm. So we'll have to drill that as well. Now, if you want a completely bolt-on option, you don't have to do the 5/8 inch hardware upgrade, but I highly recommend it. And all you're going to need is a 5/8 inch drill bit, some oil, and a little bit of patience to get these drilled out to run the heavier duty hardware. So now let's take a look at the steering kit itself. So here's the kit from Iron Rock Off-Road. We just took it out of the box. It's this beautiful black finish, this heavy duty powder coating. And these are actually solid steel. It's not tubular, it's actually solid cold rolled steel. And the tie rod, you can see, has bends in it toward the edge. So right here, it kind of bends back, pushing the tie rod out forward. Same thing on the other side. What that's gonna do is it's gonna give you clearance for things like this. So when you're coming from the knuckle, it's gonna kind of come out a little bit and clear all of this stuff on both sides. That's why they put that bend there. If you just run a straight tie rod all the way across, you can run into clearance issues. Also, you can see they put a lot of thought and design into the bends in the drag link, which goes up to the steering box where the pitman arm is. So this is all for clearance as well, and you're gonna see how this bolts on. We'll show you that. We're gonna do the full install today. Also, another benefit of this steering kit is it uses heavy duty heim joints. And it also has the heavy duty hardware that I mentioned, and then these misalignment spacers, which you'll see exactly how these work. But basically this steering kit is gonna flex, and it's gonna do everything it needs to do with the suspension. So throughout the suspension cycle, there's not gonna be any binding. You never want, no matter how much your Jeep's suspension flexes, you never want your Jeep to flex harder than your steering kit does, because then you're gonna bind up, and that's how you're gonna start breaking stuff and bending stuff and, you know, popping bolts or breaking misalignment spacers. So you wanna make sure that your steering kit can support the amount of flex that your suspension kit has, okay? So, great kit from Iron Rock Off-Road, over the knuckle steering kit with a 5/8 inch upgrade, and we're gonna show you how to install it right now. So Sam is Vlad's brother, and what he's doing right now is taking off the tires and wheels. That's going to give us some more room for the drilling. So you can see with the wheels off, we have plenty of room now. Once this stock steering is off, we'll be able to drill all the necessary points out to 5/8. And that's the next step, is to remove the factory steering. So first thing is just basically removing these pins from the castle nuts so that you'll be able to rotate them. And you just have to straighten out the back side of it so that you can pull on the loop side and pull it straight out. And sometimes these things will fight you guys, but just stick with it. You'll definitely be able to get these out even if you cut them and pull them through.
There you go. It was fighting back.
Alright, so once both of the knuckle bolts have been removed, you can work on the last one, which is on the top side of the pitman arm. And same setup there, castle nut with the pin pulling through. You just have to get that through and then you'll be able to rotate the castle nut to loosen it. So most likely you're going to have a factory steering stabilizer, so you're going to want to remove that as well. And it's the same setup, just a little bit smaller. So you'll have to remove the pin, remove the castle nut, and then the whole assembly should push through the back side. This side of the stabilizer has a normal bolt and nut, so there's no pin to remove, but you will have to grab both sides of it so that you can break it free. Alright, so at this point there are no bolts or nuts securing the factory steering. It's just basically holding on to the joints, and it's just going to take a little bit of hammering to knock it loose. You'll notice Vlad was hammering on the knuckle itself. Alright guys, so we're looking a lot cleaner under here already. You can see the factory steering's been completely removed along with the steering stabilizer. So no more tie rod, no more drag link from the factory setup. And you can also see that the knuckles are both just facing different directions. They're just opened up, getting ready for the drilling process.
I like it.
So we've confirmed that the tie rod from the Iron Rock off-road kit now matches the measurement that we took from the factory steering from knuckle to knuckle prior to removing it. So we're good on the tie rod, and we just have it sitting here. This side is already tightened because we've done all of our adjustment, and we made sure to leave equal amount of space on each side on these hind joint ends here. So we made sure that we didn't have one side longer than the other. We evened them out as best as we could. So the measurement on the tie rod, which basically sets your toe, that's good to go. And so now it's time to install the drag link, which goes from the passenger side knuckle up to the steering box or the pitman arm. So we've already installed the clamps and the hardware. So you can see we've got the misalignment spacers in the hind joints, and we have the clamps already there. And then this is the side that goes up to the pitman arm on the steering box. We've got a clamp there, and a clamp here as well. We've threaded this in, and we've got a rough measurement. Hopefully we're pretty close, but we'll see how that ends up. And we've got the bolts set up. We've got the misalignment spacers set up. So it's important to note that the misalignment spacers are only used on the drag link, because that's where the angle is. That's where the actual flex, during the suspension cycle takes place. So you do have heims on the tie rod, but there's no misalignment spacers because it's just straight across. So now Vlad's gonna go ahead and install the drag link, and hopefully we are up on a lift. Hopefully we'll be pretty close as far as the steering wheel being centered. But if you're doing this on the ground, your steering wheel is already going to be centered for you. So you can just adjust the drag link as needed so that it goes into the holes. Alright, so Vlad is putting the bolt in on the passenger side knuckle. And he already has the bolt installed, ready to go into the pitman arm. Hopefully, if we measured correctly, this will go in. And it does. Perfect. He's going to put a nut on there to secure it. And there will be 2 nuts. Iron Rock does a double nut setup on the top. As you can see here, we did on the tie rod on this side. This side's already done. So you have a standard nut and then a nylock nut on the top. We'll be running the same thing on the passenger side knuckle and also on the pitman arm itself. So notice we've got the bolt going up, we have a misalignment spacer, then we've got the heim for the drag link, another misalignment spacer, that's the factory knuckle, then we have a washer, we have the heim for the tie rod, another washer, the standard nut, and then a nylock nut. Same thing on the other side here. On the driver's side, got the bolt going up, we've got a washer, factory knuckle, washer, hind joint, washer, standard nut, nylock nut. And now we're doing the same to the drag link on the pitman arm. So we've got the bolt coming up, misalignment spacer, hind joint, misalignment spacer, factory pitman arm, standard nut, nylock nut. Now Vlad's gonna torque that down, and we should be good to go. So it's very important that you tighten all the nuts and bolts to torque specs, which in this case is going to be 140 foot-pounds. We've already torqued the standard nut down here, so now it's time to torque the nylocks up top. So we have our torque wrench set to 140 foot-pounds. Obviously we got a pretty fancy digital torque wrench here, but whatever you have will do the job just fine. If that bottom is spinning on you, just hold that, and then there you go. Alright, so we're all torqued up. And then you can see here we got a nice angle on the drag link. Going right up to the pitman arm. And we are drooped out on the suspension because remember we are on a lift. So sometimes it's actually easier to do this on the ground, but we've got a nice angle. We've got all the clearance we need between the drag link and the tie rod. And the tie rod is clearing everything on the axle. So we are good to go. Go ahead and lower this baby down. Then we'll be able to make sure that the steering wheel is centered. But we should be good to go. Alright, so here's a quick comparison for you guys. On the left we have an 05 LJ with a factory steering, factory Dana 30 axle. And on the right we have Vlad's Rubicon, and it's got the Dana 44 from the factory, but he's got the brand new Iron Rock Off-Road over the Knuckle steering kit with the 5/8 inch hardware upgrade. So let's do a quick comparison. First let's take a look at my junk. You can see this little flimsy tie rod under the knuckle, so it's low, it's exposed to rocks, and it's very small, just very narrow, easy to bend, easy to break, and then comes up to the Y-link here, and then it drops back down below the knuckle, and then the drag link, just as narrow, comes up to the pitman arm. Very weak, very exposed to rock damage. Then we come over here to the Iron Rock setup. You can see how much clearance it has. Basically that tie rod is running along the lines of the top of the axle tube. It is up there so far. So imagine right here where this tie rod is. If it was below the knuckle, it would be down here. Somewhere, you know, a difference of maybe 2 to 3 inches, somewhere in that neighborhood down here. So it's way up out of harm's way. Heavy duty heim joints, heavy duty grade 8 hardware. Running all the way across, straight, solid tie rod, bent for clearance, so no issues with anything on the axle, and then over the knuckle on this side as well, with our misalignment spacers, and a nice angle on the drag link for clearance, and the drag link going all the way up to the pitman arm. Very nice setup, heavy duty setup, and tons of clearance. You're not going to hit this on the rocks because it's up so high, and if you do, it's got enough strength and durability to withstand the hit. Excellent setup, guys. You can see it for yourself. The comparison speaks for itself. Make sure you visit ironrockoffroad.com. Check out all their products for the TJ, LJ, and they also have stuff for ZJ, WJ, XJ, every J you can think of. Alright guys, that's it for us. Have a good one.